Okay, so I see lots of links mentioned. Somebody's officially snoring.
That's Sam Crenshaw.
Oh, I see. Classic Sam. Okay, so what's interesting about this is that only you guys who are here for the live show will get to see what's happened up until this point. So now we're diving into the video on demand. We're going to dive into some of the content. And if you are watching this as a replay, you missed out on all the fun stuff where I actually talked about the greatest food on earth. And whether or not
we
you
told
want
a
to
bunch
reveal
of
that in
jokes.
chat. Kayla sang a song and danced at the same time.
Yeah, I'm that talented.
When we talk about leadership, one of the most impactful things, whether you have a puppy, a young dog in training, or even like an adult dog who, you're just trying to brush up, fix up, speed up some of those skills. One of the most important things that you need to be mindful of is supervision. Mm-hmm. This is, without a question, the secret to faster training, to better puppy training, especially when we're talking about a puppy or a young dog that doesn't have any skills or background. Supervision is so critical. If you don't see the mistakes happen, you can't fix them. And so many people talk about like, well, your dog, he knew it. I came home, he pooped in the corner. I mean, he knew it. He could just tell. That's not the case. And you've actually, in that instance, if your dog has an accident in your home and you don't catch them in the act, you've missed a great training opportunity. Catching them in the act is really important. But this also applies to things like barking, chewing, to be honest, anything, even outside, when you're struggling, maybe your dog's digging in the garden, or something like that. Supervision is critical when you have that dog in training. If you have any expectation of your dog having off-leash skills, or even really caring about what you have to say, you need to be supervising because timing is important. Can we talk a little bit about supervising when it comes to, having that young dog in training and really wanting to have snappy responses?
Yeah, I think that sometimes people need to learn a little bit about maybe some supervision tactics, because sometimes people think that they're supervising their dog, but maybe they're multitasking, maybe their mind is on something a little bit different and they don't actually see their dog, eating that thing or getting into that thing or chewing that thing or whatever it might be. So supervision is really important. Obviously, you can probably imagine we're big lovers of crate training and utilizing the crate for times where we can't supervise very well. We try our best when we are raising a dog that we don't only use a crate when we're going to leave or go to sleep and teach that dog that the crate is something that makes us go away from them. We use the crate in times where, we have to jump in the shower, we have to cook dinner, we have to do things that we know I can't put my full focus on my puppy right now. So I'll just, happily put them in their crate for that little time. And then as the puppy gets home for a few weeks and you get a little bit more comfortable, and we want to leave the puppy out of the crate to spend a little bit more time with the family, we'll do two things that will restrict the dog's ability to get into as much trouble. Number one, the puppy is never without a house line attached to their collar.
Okay, in fact, lots of links sent me back to the studio before I hopped on the train with an actual house line.
Yeah,
this
love
is such
these
a valuable
lines.
tool. Don't underestimate the value of something as simple as this.
So yes, it looks like a leash, but what's different about these is the material that we use is very lightweight, and there's no handle on the end. So you don't actually walk your dog on this. It's a material that's, designed to move around your house behind your dog, to slip and slide around the house. We also have it designed with this white line down the middle, and the dirtier the line, the better dog trainer you are, because that means it's spending more time on your dog. If this is crispy white, we know you're not using it as much as you should. So this line is really important.
Okay, and just because I think this is a perfect segue into talking about supervision and using something like a house line or your dog wearing a leash or something in the house. We often get people who will say like, oh, I tried using a house line with my puppy, but he just chews through it.
Yeah.
That is the perfect indication that you aren't supervising enough, because
you need to address it.
Yeah, catching your puppy in the act is exactly what you need to do, because of course it's going to feel like it's a toy you've just attached to your dog, and now they're dragging around this fun little chew toy all over the place. But catching them in the act, stopping them, and then getting them to work a little bit. Maybe you work on a sit, maybe you work on a go lie down, and then giving them something that they are allowed to chew on is exactly the kind of steps, exactly the kind of leadership that supervision can really like speed up. It's one of these, honestly, the more I see comments on our YouTube videos and see some of the communication back and forth with new dog owners, it's one of the things that dog owners or dog trainers just get. And when you get little wins like this, boy, oh boy, does it change the training relationship.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, whether they chew the house line, we treat it the same way as if they were chewing your shoes. They were chewing your table leg.
Yeah.
We just address it the same way we would do all of those other things. So the house line's really important. The other thing that we do is we use baby gates for our puppies. So, if we're cooking dinner, for example, and, both of us are in the kitchen and we're going to have dinner together, one of us will be on puppy duty, one of us will be cooking, and we'll baby gate the puppy in the kitchen so that they can't sneak out and get into our dining room and chew on the couch or eat the corners of the carpets or go to the bathroom, whatever the situation might be, that we restrict them so they are always in the same room that we're in, and just makes it easier for us to supervise them. So that's going to be really, really important. And what's nice is as your dog starts to learn the rules of the house a little bit more, they start to make better choices. Then it's easier for you to wean off of how much time you're using the crate. It's easier to then maybe give them a bit more freedom by giving them a little bit more access to the house, or perhaps, can wean off of not wearing the house line. So all of these are tools that we're using while our dogs are in training. And don't be surprised, we often refer to doing this as puppies because we want you to start this while your dogs are puppies. But we do exactly the same steps with people who come to us with, 8-month-old dogs or 12-month-old dogs that are making poor choices in the house. We do exactly the same steps with the, those older dogs as we do puppies. It's all the same thing. So don't get too hung up on age.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really important point. What you need to understand is that your dog is learning all the time. And whether they are an 8-week-old puppy or an 8-year-old new dog in your house, their experience, whether it's good or bad, is going to influence the choices that they make next time. So you want to make sure, as a great leader, you are letting them know when they're making the wrong choice, that you are there to acknowledge the good choices that they make. It's funny when we, sometimes our young dogs, when they're in training, they'll like go and lie down on a bed, and we'll always tell them what a great job. Mark those moments. Really let them know that what a good choice, buddy. Maybe
we can do that because we're supervising.
Because you're supervising, because you have your eyes on your dog all the time. So if your dog is making mistakes in your house, your puppy's chewing on their house line, and they're doing it because it feels good without information that that's the wrong thing, they're going to think that's the right thing. Supervision is the moment, is the strategy that's going to allow you to tell them that, hey, buddy, that's not what we want here. Why don't you go lie down over here and maybe you can chew on a bone, maybe we can work on some tricks or something like that. But supervision is the key, and because it allows you to have great timing. But supervision can be really difficult because your puppy's with you 24 hours a day. You have a life to lead. You can't be eyes on your dog all the time, because that's what supervision means. We're talking about watching your dog, watching your puppy in training. And that's where management comes in. Kale talked a little bit about management and the value that something like a house line can have. We've talked a lot previously about, you can get a leash at the dollar store. And cut the loop off it. Regardless of the size of dog, you find an appropriate size leash, cut the loop off. Now your dog drags around the house. These are our McCann puppy house lines, but you could decide to use something comparable. That's just in the house. Kale talked about the crate. What are you doing when you have to leave the room? You have to go, to work. You have to go to the store. You can't have your eyes on your puppy all the time. Crate is a nice option for that. Baby gates, controlling the space that they have access to. If you're struggling with house training, if you're struggling with your dog chewing on things, baby gates are a savior. You don't have to be making sure your puppy doesn't go into the living room, doesn't go upstairs. It allows you to, take it a little more easy. But those aren't the only management tools that we use in our training. In fact, there are a few more. What other things are we using for management that is so specific to, getting well-timed information or not allowing your dog to make mistakes?
I don't know. And you're trying to set me up, but I don't know what you mean.
I'll tell you.
Oh, okay.
Something like
that was a weird setup.
Something like a long line. especially when we're going outside to take our
Yeah.
dog outside to
Love these long lines.
to go pee or poo. Something like a long line, having a leash or a line.
It's
that's
a
like
long line.
Yeah, this one's in fact 21 feet. It's our McCann Dog's brand new, 21 foot McCann Dog's long line. Let's talk about using a long line when we take our dogs out to go.
Yeah,
potty.
I really, really like using long lines outside for dogs who are in training of any age. And I specifically like it because my goal down the road with all of my dogs is that they don't pull on a leash and that they learn to have good leash respect. And when you have an untrained dog that's energetic and you try to take them outside to go potty or to go out and play and they are on a 6-foot leash or a 4-foot leash or whatever you're using, that doesn't give the dog a lot of leeway, and it's pretty common that the dogs will be pulling on that short leash. So while dogs are in training, we love to use the longer lines because it does give the dogs a little bit more freedom, but you can control whether it's 1 foot or 21 feet. You can control all of that. And you can let the dogs just move around a little bit more. The long line, though, can be used for all kinds of situations. I used it when I take my puppy out for a potty break, and instead of going to the bathroom, they want to pick up sticks in their mouth, or they want to look for that chipmunk that just ran across the backyard, or whatever it might be. I can use the long line to redirect their attention and to interrupt them from digging in things or chewing things that they're not supposed to, or just simply ignoring me. Because there's something that's attached between me and the dog, I can follow through, and then eventually that long line goes from in my hand to dragging on the ground, and then later on down the road it leads to being able to have a dog that has really, really excellent off-leash control, which is important. I mean, you and I sat on the veranda the other day and we had our border collie out, and she just understands to stay near us. We don't even have to tell her. She just sort of stays close. But when she was a puppy, she was raised on a long line. Yeah. And when she was a puppy, if a butterfly would go by, she would be like, whoa, what's that? Yeah. And then she'd follow it. But because we had control all of the time, she just learned through good information what to do and what not to do. But the nice things about these long lines in particular, they're made out of biothane. So
they're made out of what?
Biothane.
Biothane, yep. I think it's a trademark name, so I want to make sure we absolutely nail it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought I was saying it wrong.
Biothane.
Biothane.
Okay, that's better.
Okay, you're weird. Anyways, but what's nice about it, it's super soft on the hand, but also when it's outside and if it drags through the mud or if it rains or if it's whatever, it just stays so much cleaner on the dog.
Yeah,
so
the
we've been
material is
using these for a while, and we've been
Yeah.
really hoping to get to the point where we could, add
our
them
own.
to our product store. Of course, McCann Blue, what's better? But anyways, I'm really pleased with this, and every single one of our dogs that we have, we raise using one of these lines. When we're outside, I use it to teach fetch.
Yeah.
I've actually been using it to teach my youngest dog to swim,
Yeah,
so that
yeah.
I can, keep him safe. So yeah, they're awesome.
The reality is, and this is a mistake that I see a lot of people make. They'll go to the park, they'll go somewhere where their dog is in an off-leash situation, and they'll try to get a response to name or a recall. Mm-hmm. And if you have a dog in training and you aren't absolutely sure that the dog is going to turn when you call them, to listen when you make a request, whatever that might be, they better have a leash or a line on, because good leadership means that you can do something when they make the wrong choice.
Yeah.
You can catch up to them and you can train through it. But if you call their name over and over again, and here's a classic one, let me know if you're making this mistake because I see it so often. You let your dog outside, it's late at night, you're ready to go to bed, I'm tired, let's shut things down.
And you see a skunk.
Or you just let the dog outside. You let the dog in the backyard and you're like, okay, he's probably done his business by now. And you're like, Scooter. And Scooter doesn't listen. Scooter finds a skunk, or Scooter's eating the flowers, or just sniffing the grass. Scooter. I'm going to go get his bag of treats. And you shake the bag of treats. That is the worst leadership you can possibly have.
Scooter is a very clever dog.
Scooter's training you.
Scooter has you trained.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, using something like a long line, going out with Scooter, if Scooter doesn't know how to respond to their name, is exactly the steps you need to take. That's great leadership. We're going to talk a little bit about...
Please tell me somebody on this chat has a dog named Scooter, because
Yeah.
it is our favorite, Ken specifically, favorite example dog name.
We have a video from a long time ago.
I like saying Fluffy too.
That Scooter, and it's actually a really interesting story. If you can, let me know if you can find that with Scooter the dog, the video. It was one of our students.
Like an actual scooter.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Josette.
Yeah, it was Josette.
I remember her. Yep.
Stacy with the super chat. Let's see what Stacy's got to say. Stacy, how do I lead without confusing my 3-year-old and 5-month sensitive rescue Goldens? They're always close and they're obviously at different levels. Thanks. That's a good question.
Yeah. When you have a multiple dog household, it definitely makes training a little bit more complicated. I mean, coming from us, we have 4 dogs in the house, and everybody's at different levels of training. Typically, we have our older guys and then we have our younger dogs. My recommendation to you, Stacy, is that when you are training the dogs, specifically because they're at different levels, it's really important that you are training and doing stuff with them independently. You want to make sure that you're developing independent relationships with those dogs. You're working on, good management skills and basic training and getting things sort of understood separate. And then what you can do is when you bring them together, the way that I prefer to do it is if one dog becomes well trained enough that you could tell it to lay down and stay on a bed or whatnot, then you could do that. That's what I do with my dogs. I have my older dogs lie down and stay, and then I train my puppy while the other dogs are lying down and staying. And I specifically do that because the puppy knows that the dogs are there, but they're not running and playing with ball or doing anything super exciting and stimulating. They're just sort of being bumps on a log, and they're not pulling my puppy's attention away from me. If that can't happen for you, then maybe, have a friend or a partner or something like that, have the other dog on leash at a fair distance and then work one dog to work response to name, leave it, recalls, sit stays, those types of things while the other dog is present, but there's no interaction. And then switch the dogs off. And then eventually you're going to work them a little closer together. So you're probably thinking to yourself, gosh, that sounds like a lot of work. It is a lot of work. There's no fast pass to training multiple dogs.
Yeah.
But the absolute best thing to do is to isolate, train separately, and then as the skills start to develop, you'll be able to come back together with harmony.
So we've talked a little bit about 2 of the 5 things we're going to mention tonight in the video about great leadership, and we started off with supervision. And Katerina says, I found 100% supervision so stressful.
Yep.
And it can be, for sure. One thing that I want you to really be mindful of, regardless of your age of dog, regardless of their level of training, is I want people to be more intentional when they have their dog, when they're supervising their dog, when they're out of their kennel or crate. Because if you're doing things right, you're likely going to have a dog that when you aren't interacting with them, when you aren't engaging with them, when they go in their kennel or crate, they're ready to lie down. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think some of the mistakes I made long before I was introduced to McCann dogs as a dog owner, maybe just like you, is I just thought the dog should be wandering around all the time, just be out of her kennel or crate. I didn't even have a kennel at that point. I didn't understand the value of crating. I just let her meander around the house behind me, and for some reason I thought that was good for her. And in hindsight, and after helping so many students after I became a trainer, I realized how I could have done things way better. Mm-hmm. Talk just about what is an average day when you have a dog in training? What does an average day look like?
Yeah. An average day for me looks like multiple training sessions throughout the day for short periods of time. And that might mean 5 or 10 minutes. So when I get up, in the morning, the very first thing that I do before I worry about myself is I get my puppy outside to go to the bathroom. And when we do that, I don't just mindlessly walk outside, let them pee, and then come back inside. I'll go outside, let them pee, and I might spend 5 minutes, calling their name and running away and letting them chase after me and doing a little bit of play. I might take some cookies out with me and do some sits and downs. I might, work on some sits at the door, just little things where I'm not expecting the puppy to do things. I'm teaching the puppy. I'm showing the puppy, making it dead easy for them. We might come back inside. I might, feed breakfast or whatever time it is at morning breakfast time. I might do a little bit more training for breakfast, and then the remainder of their breakfast I would put in their crate. I would put the puppy in the crate, shut the door, and then while they're eating their breakfast, I would go about finishing getting myself ready for the morning. That would include, showering, getting ready for work, packing my bags, letting the other dogs out, exercising them, all that time, my puppy's in the crate. Then, I have the luxury of taking my puppy to work, but from there, when I take my puppies to work, I'm not hanging out with my puppy all day. I'm teaching other people how to train their dogs. So once I get to the work, another quick pee, back into the crate they go. I teach for a couple hours. In between classes, I come, get the puppy out. We go outside for 5 or 10 minutes and we do a few more things together. It's very concentrated, isolated time where I'm interacting with my dog. Once I've done that, puppy goes back into the crate and I go, Zoom calls, meetings, whatever I'm doing. Puppy's in the crate for all that. And then a little while later, bring the puppy back out, do a few more things, and then puppy goes back in the crate. And then by the time I get home from work, I know my puppy needs a bit more attention. So we might do a few more training things, and then we might have some quiet time. So, rather than, going back in the crate right away, we might, sit in front of the TV for half an hour, chewing on a bone while I hold the bone and have the puppy nearby me. Just some not intense time, but just close time where the puppy's learning just to chill and be with me. We've had a long day. They've had lots of exercise. I know they've been fully taken care of. I'm winding the puppy down to start getting ready into like sleepy mode. We go outside one more time and then in the crate for bed. So they are in and out of that crate a million times throughout the day. But if you added up the time they were in the crate versus the time they were out of their crate, the time that they are in their crate in the early stages far outweighs the amount of time that they're out of the crate. And before you start to panic and go, that's mean, I don't like that, I guarantee you that this less time that I spend with my puppy is way more quality time than the average person spends with their puppy that just lets them roam around learning to make all these mistakes. Our puppies don't really learn to do a lot of poor things in the house, like stealing things, chewing things, house training, that kind of stuff, because they don't really get an opportunity to kind of be free will in the house to make their own choices. Our engagement with the puppies while they're young is so focused on development, bonding, relationship building, training, that when the puppy comes out of the crate, even after only a few weeks coming home, the puppy comes up and they just like stare at us like, okay, well, what are we doing then?
Yeah.
Because that's just what they're used to. They're not ignoring us or running around the house. They don't want to. All they want to do is be close to us because that's how we raise them. And then over time, and a couple hours in the crate turns into less time until many of our older dogs never have to go in a crate ever.
So guaranteed someone's going to be saying like, well, you're a dog trainer, you can take your dog to work. Like, what do I do?
No, my dog's not out at work. They're in a crate the same way that you would be at your job.
For sure. So if you're thinking like, well, I have an 8-hour day, how on earth am I going to do this? Well, for great leadership purposes, you're going to get a friend or a family member to let your dog out during the day. You're going to maybe get a dog walker. Like, this is a commitment you've made. You've made a commitment.
And you don't even need that forever. Like, once your puppy is,
Absolutely.
4, 5, 6 months old and they can hold their bladder for 8 hours, 7 hours while you're sleeping, which they should be able to do, by the way.
This is overnight because maybe you're sleeping at work. I don't know.
Yeah. This is overnight. But they should be able to do that during the day as well.
Yeah.
But obviously you have to teach your dog how to do that. You can't just shove them in a crate for 8 hours and hope that they're okay. You've got to build into that. But they're perfectly capable of, spending some time in the crate. And, we often say to our people, if they feel guilty about that, what would you want your dog to be doing while you're away at work? If you ask me that question, I would want my dog to be like going somewhere and lying down, sleeping, maybe chewing a bone, not running around my house, not getting into my things, just lying down and sleeping. Well, they're going to do that in a crate.
Yeah.
So when I have a young dog that I can't trust, can't fathom leaving them loose in the house to their own devices so that they get to kind of make up their own little schedule for the day. That is not happening. So it's really important.
But like when you're talking about this kind of thing, this starts early. You have this plan. Great leadership is what you do before you leave.
Yeah.
You're making a plan. Maybe you're getting up a half an hour earlier than you normally do, 20 minutes earlier, whatever that might take. And you're going out of your way to exercise that dog, tire them out mentally, physically. You're really making sure that when they go in their kennel, they lie down and they want to be in there. They want to relax.
Yeah.
And that's how you start to get those wins. It always surprises me. People really seem to struggle overnight with puppies, and it's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
But I understand that people aren't starting that bedtime schedule at dinner time. Like if you have a puppy or a dog that's young enough to have issues with potty, you're going to start that strategy from dinner time on.
Yeah.
You're going to start planning out the things you're going to do. We have several videos to talk about that. But that's how you get the wins, because that's great leadership. That's leadership that makes you go out of your way to do what's best for the dog.
Yeah.
Rather than what's most convenient for you.
Totally.
We've talked a little bit about, let's see here, supervision management. We need to talk about, I actually think I have some slides for this. I do. Oh, look at that. SMART. This is the acronym that we're building this lesson plan on.
We probably should have led with that.
Anticipate. Think like a puppy.
How to be smart.
Does it look like it could be chewed up or peed on? You better put it where I can't get it. This doesn't only apply to puppies. This also applies to situations when you're out on a walk and you see a challenge come up in front of you, when you're out at the park and you think, boy, I don't have a line on, or my dog's probably pretty interested in those kids running around at the swing set. This is anticipation, and good leaders know what their dogs are capable of, and they have a good sense of what they need to do to either avoid having them having to deal with the situation when the dog makes a wrong mistake, or they know what to do way before it. We talk about that concentric circle sometimes, where we talk about we call it the training target, where the dog's definitely going to fail in the center as the bullseye. They're likely to fail, or they may fail on the second circle, and then they're not going to fail at all on the green circle. And good leaders know that they need to make decisions in the green and the yellow circle. So they're anticipating, when do I need to start the training in this situation? Let's talk about maybe anticipating challenges with dogs, when you're trying to get your dog off leash or working on a recall.
Yeah, I can actually give you a personal example. So we have a border collie who's 7 or 8 years old now. And when she was younger, she was really kind of a little bit uncomfortable around people that would just kind of walk out of the blue. If I was at the park and all of a sudden she thought we were alone and then somebody would just appear, she would get a little bit worried and she'd spook bark at them, or she'd get her hackles up and be a little bit afraid. And we got to the point where her off-leash control was pretty good, but I always had to be very aware that if somebody was just to come out, that she could potentially, while she was younger and not fully trained yet, she could bark and want to run over to where those things were. So when I was working on off-leash control with her, I would have my leash around my shoulder, and I would have just a long line on her, and we would take her to the park and we'd give her a little bit of freedom, and it'd be lots of training, but I was always kind of scanning around a little bit so that I could make sure I could see those people before B did. And then if I did see people, I would just very calmly call her back, not B, come back here, and be stressy, because then she would be like, what's wrong with you? I would call her back over, I'd have her sit, I'd attach my leash so I had a bit more control. I would have her move into my side. I would use some treats. I would let her, she'd see the people and she'd start to get a little bit unsure, and I'd just say, leave it. And I would turn and go the other direction. I would keep her busy walking with me and turning and sitting and down and all these things to kind of keep her engaged. And she'd have one eye on the people, but then she'd sort of go, wait a second, what are we doing here? And what started to happen is she got to the point where she would notice the people, but instead of learning to react to them, she had rehearsed so much reconnecting and doing stuff with me that she started to do that all by herself. But that was because I anticipated. I didn't wait until she saw the people and was running across the field barking at them before doing something about it. I was quick to say, I'm pretty sure I know what's going to happen here. I don't want her to rehearse making poor choices or learning bad behaviors or even just being worried or whatever. So I would anticipate, put the leash on, and I would be proactive in my dog training. And that same anticipation needs to happen for dogs that are barking at the window when the people are walking by. Let's anticipate that happening, and let's stop letting the dog stand at the window for 3 hours barking at people walking by. Anticipation means that you are one step ahead of the bad choice, so that we're stopping the bad choice from being rehearsed, being practiced, and we have an opportunity to redirect the dog to do something that's better. And because we have great timing, because we've anticipated it, we're going to conquer that challenge much, much more easily because we're ready for it. So anticipation is huge. Anticipation comes with experience. It also comes with getting to know your dog, to, have a good idea of when this happens, your dog might do this. And it's always better to weigh on the side of caution. And if you're not sure, just treat it like something bad could happen and get your dog under control.
Let me know in the chat. I want you to type yes if you have been in a situation where you thought, oh boy, I don't know how this is going to work. Maybe you're outside. Maybe you're going for a walk and you think to yourself like, this dog is definitely going to lunge or pull at that other dog, or he's going to jump up on Aunt Flo or whoever. I want you to type yes in the chat if you've ever made a bad decision about something like that, or you've called them, they're off leash or they're in the backyard and you're like, Fluffy, and they don't come back. It's so common because I think sometimes we like to gamble. It's easier to, if they come back in, that's great. If not, oh, no big deal. But in reality, you're accidentally being a bad leader for your dog. Once they learn that they don't have to listen, once they learn that they may get to pull you up to that person walking down the street, they don't have to run back in the house when you call them. Once they learn that, it's just as valuable as the times they may have made the right choice. And that's accidentally being a bad leader. The other thing and I see Terry, Stacy, the Cotton Home team, yes, yep. Ann says, yep. I mean, these things happen. And what I love about train station episodes like tonight is starting right now. You can stop making those, or you'll start being more aware of them, because every time you make one of these bad choices, it compounds. And your dog learns more and more that they don't really have to listen. You know, no big deal. I'm not going to come right now, but she's going to call me again in a couple of seconds. So maybe I'll run back then. These are really important realizations for you as a young or as a new dog owner. And when you start to figure this out, what do you start doing? You start having better management strategies. You stop calling when you're not sure what the result is going to be, and maybe you go set the dog up to be right. Let's imagine a situation where your dog's out, let's say at the park or whatever. Your dog's out in the backyard and they've gotten out there, or you've let them out there and you've thought to yourself, oh, you know what? I probably shouldn't call them because I don't know if they're going to run back. So you're going to put your slippers on, you're going to go in the backyard, clip your leash on, and then you can practice it there, because if they don't respond, you can train through it.
And maybe next time put the line on beforehand.
Absolutely. In fact, if you have one of these Biothane, one of our incredible Biothane lines,
keep it at the door. That's
easier.
What we do with ours.
Yeah,
we literally keep it at the door so that when we go outside, part of our training to go outside, like with our puppies, is to learn to sit at the door.
Yep.
They have to hold a sit while we attach the long line and then unattach the house line. And then we say, okay, and then let them get up. And we literally do that every single time we go outside. And the puppies learn to do it independently because we're consistent about it, but it just becomes a bit of a routine, and that's leadership right there. It's just, you know, not that difficult to do. It's an easy thing to be consistent with, but that way we know that when they're outside, we're always going to have an opportunity to be ready.
Absolutely.
Ready for action.
Yeah, it's just so important when you're anticipating your the choices your dog's going to make. It's like a great coach. You know, a great coach might work you hard, might make you really work for it sometimes, but you're going to be motivated about it. They're not going to let you fail over and over again.
They're going to hold you accountable.
They're going to hold you accountable. That is so important. I know I've seen a lot of online students.
That's my favorite thing to do as a coach myself.
In the chat. Let us know. Let me know. I want to hear from all our online students. You know, because we hold you accountable in our online training, and the value
in the nicest way.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. But that's what you need. That's what I needed when I went to McCann Dogs as a student many years ago. You know, I needed to be accountable. You and I were talking about nighttime routine. I just saw one of our Lots of Links Luton sent me a message saying we actually have a nighttime routine video coming out this weekend. So it's great timing.
Perfect.
If you're struggling with your overnight and what to do with your dog, make sure you check out the channel on Saturday morning. But accountability is hugely important, and I think it might be one of those things that, you know, you need someone there to sort of guide you, to help you.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard because life gets busy, things get in the way. It's nice to be part of a community that's also going to support you. That's exactly what you could be part of in our online training community. And that's kind of the exciting part of seeing a lot of our online students.
Yeah, and I think it's important to say, you know, hopefully a lot of you guys are on our live stream today because you've seen one of our educational training videos on YouTube. And we do share a lot of our training methods on YouTube, which is great. But what you don't realize with our YouTube videos is they're part education, they're also part entertainment. And the order in which we train things and how long we train for and what exercise we put together and when we go on to steps, we don't include any of that in YouTube. And that's something that we do in our programs. We sort of show you how to put all of the exercises together step by step by step so that you know exactly what to do. And the online program is not just limited to watching videos. It also comes with a ton of support from our instructors. You also get to interact and, you know, see the questions and answers from other people that are in the program. Sometimes you'll learn that, like, 20, 30 other people are having exactly the same problem that you are. And then you get to learn all about it. And then sometimes you'll see things and you're like, gosh, I didn't even know that could be a problem. Now I'm ready for it if it happens with my puppy. So the community aspect is really important. It's something that it's why we didn't come out with an online program for such a long time, is because we're so used to our in-person classes where we have such a close connection with our students because we work with them every single week. We get to know them and their students and their dogs so much, and so we wanted to make sure that we were able to have that same feeling with our students online. And I believe our online team is very, very good at that.
Yeah, I see some really great
especially Instructor Robbie. You'll get to know her
superstar.
Very well.
Instructor Robbie was my first Life Skills 1 instructor, and many years ago. What is it, 17 years ago? 18 years ago now?
Something like that.
But Instructor Robbie, what's so interesting is I didn't really want to go to dog training. I didn't want to have to train my dog. And I went to McCann Dogs. My vet said he couldn't assess her. And he's like, listen, this is not going well. You need to go over to McCann Dogs. These guys are great. And I decided that I had to go. And I couldn't believe how well it worked. I couldn't believe how much fun it was. Like I really had so much fun teaching my dog how to listen because, I made some bad choices and I didn't really know what I didn't know. But boy, oh boy, did it change the course of my life as you see me sitting here beside Kale.
You got a trained dog and you got a wife.
That's right. Yeah, pretty remarkable. We talked a little bit about accountability, not only for the human, but for the dog. So
we don't guarantee wives with your program.
No. So we need to talk about redirection, what that means. When your dog makes the wrong choice, whether it is a puppy problem or adult dog problem, redirecting is really important. It's the follow through that we talk about. Mm-hmm. And this is where oftentimes people fall short. And this is where your leadership completely falls apart.
Yeah, so we believe that it's important to let your dog know when they're making a wrong choice, and that's why we have leashes and lines and long lines and house lines on our puppies, so that we're never, when we say redirection, we literally mean physically redirecting your dog to something that they should be doing instead. But we are not big lovers of people actually grabbing onto the actual dog itself, because a couple things could happen. If I reach and try and grab my dog and pull something out of its mouth or try and catch my dog, some dogs will think it's a game and they'll turn into a bit of a catch me if you can game, and they'll take off and they think it's really fun. Other dogs will turn back and nip and bite at you and jump all over you. It's not super effective, and some dogs can be worried and scared of that, which is certainly not our goal either. So the redirection is something physical. But the other thing that we really strongly believe in is that if you are going to tell your puppy or your dog at any time that something is wrong, you must then redirect them to something that is right. So if you don't like this, great, tell them that. But what should they do instead? Mm-hmm. Redirect, and then that way, because what we want to do is say no, or this is wrong. And then we want to find an opportunity to say, whoa, look at you, what a great choice. So we can praise and reinforce the dog for what is correct. And so many people miss that spot. They just end up saying, no, stop that. And their whole day is built around, being frustrated with the dog and stopping them from doing this and stopping them doing from that, because there's no follow through. There's maybe all the other things we talked about, poor management, poor supervision, all of those types of things. But then they're not taking the time to then show the dog what they should be doing differently. When people come to the door, what do you want your dog to do? Well, train them to do that. And if you don't know how, that's why you come to classes, and we'll show you that. If you don't want your dog to bark in this situation, what would you rather them do instead? Teach them how to do that instead. It's all about the redirection, and that comes with being consistent and having the follow through. Redirection also is important with the follow through. I think you mentioned this a little bit earlier with one of your examples, but people are really bad for repeating their commands to the dog and just, I don't know, hoping, wishing, thinking the dog is eventually going to listen to you.
Hoping and wishing and thinking.
If your dog was going to listen, they would just listen the first time. If you're having to do it 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, the dog's ignoring you, they are nothing wrong with your hearing. They are just ignoring you. And either they're pushing your buttons and seeing whether you're going to follow through, or they don't know what you're asking them to do. They're not ignoring you because they're bad. They're ignoring you because you've actually not done the work to deserve getting them to listen to it on the first time. So that's another thing that sort of blends in with redirection and follow through and things like that. You want to be careful that you're not, recommanding your dog and teaching them that your words don't matter.
The other thing
that's... Do you throw a bird?
I do, yeah. Be in the train station. They probably flew in. The other thing that's really important to understand is that dogs will do what's rewarding. As you were talking about that, maybe it's barking outside, maybe it is pulling on leash, maybe it is sniffing in the flower garden. It doesn't matter what it is. If you aren't there, if you aren't able to redirect and sort of change their mind, get them focused on something else, then they'll just continue being rewarded by the thing. Jumping up on somebody, it could be the most rewarding part. I mean, the dog jumps up on your neighbor and then you pull them down off. Well, the dog's already been rewarded for that thing. So if you aren't able to redirect as it's happening, before it happens is the best timing. But if you aren't able to redirect, then your dog is continually having the opportunity to be rewarded doing the thing that they want to do and the thing that's driving you crazy.
Yeah.
Because you're accidentally being a bad leader. You aren't anticipating. You aren't managing. You're not redirecting. The redirection is a key part of being a great leader because it very clearly and quickly shows your dog, okay, this is what I want. I don't like that. This thing isn't going to work for us. But this, you get them back, their brain back on training, you get them back on you get them walking at your side again, whatever the correction is, whatever the thing is that you get them back on track, then you can quickly start rewarding them again and letting them know this is the good stuff, pal. Mm-hmm. So important for leadership. We talked a little bit about after that redirection. Let's say your dog, you've learned, actually, you know what, let's got a super chat. $20 super chat from 5J's D. Coleman. I have a 3-year-old Boston Terrier and a new 3-month-old. My older one seems very standoffish in the house. He doesn't correct the puppy's behavior. He rolls him and tries to mount him. Is this okay?
Outside, he rolls him and tries to mount him. So when you have multiple dogs and you have a dog that's older and then you have a dog that's younger, there are some older dogs that will naturally step into that leader role and are very comfortable, disciplining a puppy. I would say a lot of dogs are not, though. And it can be very stressful for an older dog to be put in a situation where you're like, okay, go. Teach the puppy a lesson.
Right.
And they're like, I don't want to do that. Like, this puppy's irritating. You're supposed to be the one to do that. You're the one in charge. So it is important that you are not putting your older dog in a situation where you're kind of leaving it to them to figure it out. It's up to you to step in and make the changes that are necessary. We really are big believers in separating puppies from older dogs for quite some time. When I'm raising a new puppy in the house, they are not really having a lot of free time with my older dogs until they are well over 6 or 7 months old. So that means that if my puppy's loose in the house and we're doing training and we're doing activities, my older dogs are either in their crate or they're behind a baby gate or they're separated so that my puppy cannot rehearse going and jumping and being on their heads and that type of thing, because I don't think it's fair for my older dogs to be put into the situation where they need to do that. So separation inside is going to be important.
So yes, really important. You talked about what you do, but why you do it. You said you don't think it's fair, but also you're going to have terrible timing. The dog's going to be rewarded by jumping on your older dog didn't get a choice here.
No.
You've brought this puppy home. You've been like, here you go, and it just isn't fair. You can't give your dog dog training is all about information, well-timed information, and if it's also about teaching your dog that you're worth listening to.
Yeah.
They already speak the same language. They're already able to communicate very well, and you're trying to get your puppy to start to understand, that your voice has value. So why would you put yourself in a situation where you've got a lot to overcome when rather than listening to you say sit or go lie down or do whatever the thing is, skill that you're working on, they can just go play with the older dog that is, already has probably lots of freedom, lots of opportunity, maybe, has their own chew toys, and now the puppy is going to share with them. You really want to set yourself up to, in your puppy's eyes, look like a leader. And the way to do that is supervision, management, anticipate, redirect. All of these things apply to this specific situation. So be careful that you're not accidentally being a bad leader. After the supervision, management, anticipation, redirection, we've talked about it several times. We've dropped these little nuggets, and this is one of those things where people will say like, well, you catch your puppy chewing on the house line. Then what? Well, you catch your puppy chewing on shoes. Then what do you do? What do you do after you've redirected the dog or the puppy or dog away from that thing? And I love this because this is the difference. It's not just about the redirection. It's about what you do with their brains next.
Yeah, well, then I would redirect them to something that they should do. So perhaps I would give them, one of their own bones to chew on. So they learn, when you want to go over there, don't do that. Go over here and chew on your bone instead. So I would give them something else to do. Or I might just get them to do an obedience behavior that puts the dog's focus back on me. Maybe I ask for a sit. Maybe I ask for a down. Maybe I ask for, a couple moments of look at me, eye contact. And then we can move on from there. Because what you don't want to do is sometimes people will redirect by, the dog's got the shoe in its mouth, and then what they do is they go over and they just put a toy in the dog's mouth instead, and they think that's a redirection. But if you think about timing and dog training, you need to make sure that you're not rewarding your dog with the redirection and the fact that they think that this bone or toy or treat appears every time they go and put their mouth on your running shoes.
Yeah.
So the redirection needs to have good timing. We're redirecting, we're moving the dog away from the area that's causing the problem. We are getting a little bit of focus, and then we are reinforcing with something that is better, so that there's a few seconds that go by between when they're, in doing the thing they're not supposed to and then doing the thing that they are supposed to do. But you don't want to go one right after another, because you will get mixed messages then.
When we talk about getting dogs motivated, the McCann method essentially is about figuring out how to get your dog motivated to work, to listen to you, for training to be interesting, exciting, and fun, but very clear-cut rules. I love that step. That step is about, hey, don't do that thing, but if you work for me, if you do this sit, we do this trick, or if you do something, I just love that sort of transfer of not power, but like the transfer of like leadership. Yeah. Transfer of leadership is so
It's a non-confrontational way to say, you're not allowed to do that. You need to listen to me.
Yeah, and having seen it multiple times, in real life, working through it with the dog, that's when you start to get a dog who will look to you for information. People will always say things like, oh, it's amazing how much your dogs look at you.
Yeah.
Whether it's teaching classes or just in general. And people say, my dog would never look at me. Well, why would they? Why would your dog look at you? What are you offering them? What are you getting them to do? Have they ever learned that just checking in with you is worth it?
Yeah.
And that doesn't always mean food. Maybe it's they check in. This is cool because I see this happen, especially when we're working with a dog that's pretty high energy, is they check in with us or they turn back to us in a situation, and Kale will, in this loud, bubbly voice, go, yeah, good. And she'll play this game of tug with, like our puppy tug or something. But she'll have this huge game where the dog's being rewarded with a toy. What's so wonderful about an interactive toy like that is that it's all about you and them. Like, they find it so much fun. They love that interaction, but it's also the reward that they didn't even know was coming. So in this moment, just checking in with you, all of a sudden you explode with excitement. You have a game of tug with them, and they think, well, geez, next time I'm, out here, why don't I just check in with my human? What will happen? Maybe it'll be just as exciting as last time. And by, repeating these kinds of things, showing them that, remember, dogs will do what's rewarding. Checking in with you on a walk, checking in with you at the park, checking in with you in the backyard, doesn't matter where it is. If you make it rewarding, then they're likely to repeat that behavior. It's really, really valuable. I think we really need to think about leadership in a different way. I know that leadership, especially in like the dog training space, a lot of people might think like, well, that sounds like it's heavy-handed.
Harsh.
Yeah,
or something.
boy, that sounds harsh. But that's not it at all. Looking for those non-confrontational ways to get a win with your dog, to get them putting in some effort. That's exactly what the McCann method is about.
It shouldn't be harsh.
No,
it
absolutely
shouldn't be
not,
harsh.
for sure.
Yeah, and we want to teach you how to do it in a way that you feel comfortable and confident, and that your puppy looks to you for guidance, and we're not using intimidation, we're not using anything like that to get the dog to listen. We're using motivation and good information, so the dog actually says, I like listening to you more than I like not listening to you, totally. More than I like going and self-serving and finding my own ways to reward myself. They look to us for those things instead, by how we deliver the information and how we motivate them to work for us.
I love it. Instructor Robbie, leadership is about giving direction.
Yeah.
Clear, consistent direction. I love that. That's so important.
Dogs do love their leaders.
So we, you guys are the first, you at home are the first people to know about this product. Nobody.
Hot off the press.
It is hot
Literally,
off the press.
they got here yesterday.
Yeah. And
yesterday.
It just hit our store at our training facility. It just hit the store today.
Yeah.
These new long lines made of biothane. They're amazing. We have regular long lines and then long lines for small breed as well.
Also,
for dogs under 15 pounds.
I want to see something cool. I don't know if it'll come up in the camera. Does this have a thingy in it?
Right here.
Oh, wrong end.
Oh, it should show in the camera. I think if you can get it close enough. Oh, can you get it to not see, show your face? We're gonna get this.
Oh!
Hey!
Look at that.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Very cool. After tonight's show, we are going to, you're going to have the opportunity to go check out the McCann Dogs music channel. If you have a dog who gets a little stressed when you leave them alone, or you're working on crate training, or anything that if you have a noise-sensitive dog, sound-sensitive dog, we've worked with some music creators to make music for dogs. Literally music for dogs. This isn't dog TV where there's like a bunch of balls bouncing around. This is about relaxation. That's it. We want to calm your dog.
Jinx.
You owe me a Coke. I forget what that is. That how it goes?
I'm supposed to be you.
Something
beer,
like that. Because we're Canadian, eh?
E.
Now, at the end of the show, you will be given that opportunity. We'd be excited to see you on Monday in our online programs. Make sure you check that out, McCannDogs.com. Go to McCannDogs.store to get any of the management tools that we've been talking about tonight. The reason we sell them, we don't sell a lot of things in our store. The reason we sell these things is because they will make a difference in your dog training. I know because I came as a student and I realized all these things. And that's why I know it's so important that you at home have the right tools, because it allows you to be a great leader for your dog.
Yeah, if you're local to our August session of classes, Puppy Essentials, all our levels of life skills, all of that is open for registration as well. So if you're within driving distance, come out and check out our facility. It's a beautiful facility, and we're starting to basically have like a whole playground for dogs. Everything you can think of to do with dogs.
There's a couple secrets coming up at the training facility we're pretty excited about. We got to slowly roll them out, though.
Yeah.
Pool we're talking about. Pool is almost ready to go. Dan said, Lots of Links has said, a couple house lines have left the building, and a couple people are going to be great managers, great leaders for their dogs when they're outside. The thing I want you to remember is that with all of the teaching, all of the training, all of the things that we've talked about tonight, the rest of my friends, well, that is up to you.